The night the cabin was attacked started quietly, the kind of quiet that only exists deep in the wilderness, where the trees seem to absorb every sound and the stars hang low and watchful. The cabin sat alone at the edge of a dense forest, miles from the nearest town, a place chosen specifically for its isolation. It was supposed to be a peaceful weekend retreat, a chance to disconnect from the world. No one expected that isolation to become a trap. As darkness settled in, the wind moved through the trees in slow, deliberate waves. At first, the sounds outside felt normal, branches creaking, leaves shifting, something small scurrying across the forest floor. Inside the cabin, the fire crackled softly while the occupants laughed and talked, unaware they were being watched. There was a presence beyond the tree line, tall and motionless, blending into the shadows as if the forest itself had grown eyes. The first sign that something was wrong came as a dull thud against the outer wall. It wasn't loud enough to cause panic, just strong enough to stop the conversation. Everyone froze, listening. A moment passed, then another. Someone suggested it was a fallen branch or a deer brushing against the cabin. The explanation felt thin, but it was accepted, because the alternative was far more unsettling. Minutes later, the smell hit the air. A thick, musky odor seeped through the cracks in the cabin walls, sharp and rotten, unlike anything they had smelled before. It clung to the back of the throat and made breathing uncomfortable. Then came the footsteps. Heavy. Slow. Purposeful. Each step pressed into the earth with weight that no animal should have carried. The ground seemed to vibrate with every movement. A shadow passed by the window, blocking out the moonlight completely. It wasn't quick like a passing animal. It lingered. A massive silhouette stretched across the glass, broad shoulders and a shape that stood far too tall to be human. Panic set in immediately. Someone reached for a flashlight, another for a firearm kept by the door. The air inside the cabin turned thick with fear. Without warning, the pounding began. The entire cabin shook as something slammed into the walls with incredible force. Wood groaned and nails screamed as if the structure itself was protesting the abuse. A roar followed, deep and guttural, vibrating through chests and rattling bones. It was not a bear. It was not any known animal. It sounded intelligent, furious, territorial. The creature circled the cabin, testing it. Windows rattled as massive hands, or something like hands, pressed against the glass. One window cracked under the pressure, spiderweb fractures spreading outward. From outside came heavy breathing, wet and labored, as if the thing was savoring the fear inside. Every instinct screamed that this was not an animal acting on hunger alone. This was something asserting dominance. A sudden crash exploded through the back wall as a thick log was hurled against the cabin with impossible strength. Wood splintered inward, sending shards across the floor. Screams filled the room. The fire was nearly knocked over as everyone scrambled for cover. Another roar erupted, closer now, filled with rage and triumph. The creature knew it could get inside. It wanted them to know too. Through the broken wall, a glimpse of fur-covered muscle appeared, dark and matted, moving with disturbing coordination. Long arms reached through the opening, fingers curling and scraping against the wood. The smell intensified, overwhelming and primal. A gunshot rang out, deafening in the enclosed space. The creature recoiled, bellowing in pain and fury, but it did not retreat far. Instead, the attack intensified. The cabin was lifted on one side, slammed back down like a toy. Furniture tipped over, shelves collapsed, and fear turned into pure survival instinct. Another gunshot echoed into the forest. This time, the roar that followed was different. It was wounded. Angry. But also cautious. The pounding slowed, then stopped altogether. Silence returned, but it was worse than the noise. No one moved. No one spoke. Minutes passed that felt like hours. Outside, branches snapped as something massive retreated into the forest, its footsteps fading but never fully disappearing. The sense of being watched remained, heavy and oppressive, as if the creature had only withdrawn to observe from a distance. When dawn finally broke, the damage became clear. Deep claw marks were carved into the walls, far higher than any human could reach. Massive footprints surrounded the cabin, each one sunk deep into the soil, measuring far larger than a bear's. The broken logs, the shattered wall, the warped door, none of it could be explained away. Whatever attacked the cabin was real, powerful, and intelligent. No official report ever acknowledged what happened that night. Rangers blamed a bear. Skeptics laughed it off as exaggeration. But those who were inside the cabin knew the truth. They heard the footsteps. They smelled the creature. They felt the cabin lift beneath them. Somewhere in those woods, something still walks upright in the darkness, watching, waiting, and reminding anyone who ventures too far into its territory that they are not alone.